You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
And on that bombshell, welcome to Ask Drone U. My name is Paul.
And I'm Rob. And are we really going to do this? Heck, why not?
Yeah,
All right. Yeah.
Life's too short.
Indeed it is. Thank you for joining us. And this is a really interesting question. And I think there's going to be a lot more people thinking about this. I don't know that there's a lot of people that can execute on it.
It is hard.
Maybe.
It is hard.
Because, especially, when you start talking about it, it's one thing to build it. It's another thing to get everything talking to each other.
True.
Right? That's probably where it comes in to be a challenge in terms of getting the camera to do what you want it to do from your controller. I don't know. It overwhelms me, to be honest with you. But I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on this because it's a really well-crafted question. It's a detailed, you can tell he has an understanding from the basis of his question.
100%.
Which I appreciate.
100%. Well, let's say this. Before we get into that question, we're going to hit our sponsor for today. Today, we are talking about the Drone U experience training because, look, we're going to be talking about mapping today, and we're going to be going over mapping real-world construction examples at the experience training, but we're also going to be teaching how to use ground-based gimbals. We're going to be teaching aerial videography. We're going to be teaching Cinewhoop. We're going to be giving you a complete training experience unlike anything you've ever seen or heard of before. Join us for 7 days in colorful Colorado as you're navigating the tree line above it and through it with Cinewhoop drones. As we embark on 5 days of training all day long, as we also cover your room and your board, so that way you can have an experience to focus on retaining what you learn, not just being distracted about figuring out what's going to be your next meal. Those last 2 days, you're actually going to be competing against other students so that you can actually see where your skills land and what you need to do and focus on once you leave the training. You'll be competing for a cash prize, which will honestly give you just enough of a push and a boost to compete against your fellow drone pilots. The experience training is by far our favorite training, and it's taking place this year in Breckenridge, Colorado, as we've done the last few years. If you want to join us for an experience you'll never forget, you want to gain skills to pay the bills, and you want to walk away with marketing material that you can use to promote your business, then this is the place where you can do it all in one shot. Join us. Experience.thedroneu.com.
Good day, Drone U. I'm already seeing local organizations, both public and private, specifically mentioning they will not conduct business with operators flying Chinese drones, of course, DJI. We all know the NDAA compliant options are much more expensive. And as a result, I'm investigating options to build my own platform using PX4 as the flight controller. Assuming the drone is properly spec'd for the job, do you think this is a viable option for photogrammetry and modeling? And while we're on the subject of non-proprietary solutions, would you also speak to open source data processing like OpenDroneMap, and if that's capable of supporting a commercial photogrammetry business? Thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Nathan. Again, as we said pre-show, this was a really great question. Great question.
Wait.
And I think that...
Do you have a Whittle Wada in the back of your car too? Lisa once, she goes, I want to put a Whittle Wada on all the Cybertrucks. And I told her you can only do it to the ones that actually stay elevated because there's like 16 inches of clearance that you can move.
All right. Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Anyways, great question, Nathan. And I'm really curious as to what Paul thinks about this because I do believe that we're a long ways out from what I can see, from what I can tell, from there being a manufacturer that can replace DJI's drones for the cost of a DJI drone, that level of capability for anywhere near that cost.
I think we're going to need some serious government subsidies to make this crap happen. It's clearly what happened in China with DJI and Frank Wang when he got started. Mm-hmm. He and I went to college around the same time period, which is crazy to think about. And I mean, look at the subsidies that he got. Look at what they've built. They have more engineers than our national labs have. Like, think about that. That's just the scale of that is
pretty
astronomical.
Intense. It is pretty intense. Yeah. So there are going to be a lot of people, like I've said 3 times now, sorry, that are going to be thinking about this. But it's, number one, I'd say it's not as easy as it seems. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this.
No, it's funny that you say that because I opened up X just in between shows and there's a new company called Poseidon building planes And they're probably doing it in the same way. I mean, we can also sit here and say breaking news, Drone Code had their 10-year anniversary last week. Drone Code is who came out with the Pixhawk flight controller.
Okay.
Which is now the PX4 run by Auterion.
Doesn't the Pix, what is it?
Pixhawk?
The Pixhawk? Isn't it in a lot of drones that are domestically produced?
It is,
or used to be?
Or an evolved version of it, meaning the PX4 was the Pixhawk. Which, if you remember, we built a drone on the Pixhawk.
Oh, it's still up right there.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah,
I think the best it got in the air was pretty much me holding it like this.
No, it was Peter running it into the ground at the park.
Peter built it and destroyed it all in one afternoon.
Anyway, that being said, look, okay. So yes, the answer to your question is that most American drones are built off of some evolution from the Pixhawk, which then became PX4, which was Auterion, which now has the Cube flight controller. And then there's Skynode, which is like, Cube and Skynode are different. Skynode, I believe, has the cellular integration so that you can do over-the-air firmware updates. So you can do a lot of different stuff that is like DJI-esque. Now, that being said, what a lot of experienced drone people complain about, I'll take something out of Bobby Sakaki's book here, is that a lot of these American and domestic manufacturers are actually systems integrators. They're integrating the Auterion flight control system into their drone. Look, who is doing this? Wingtra. Who is doing this? Inspired Flight. Who is doing this? Free Fly Systems. Most of the
Skydio's moving away from this, aren't they?
Skydio moved away from it, yes, because they felt, I forget what Brian said on the show, but he pretty much said that it was limiting. Because of radios, it was limiting on their suite, which I totally understand now. Because look, we still love Free Fly Astros. If you want a Free Fly Astro, we still sell them. I think we actually do the best job of any of the actual dealers because we've got videos on how to set them up. We've got videos and we set your drone up before it leaves the door. We take everything to a new level. So that being said, you could very, very easily, that is absurdly expensive. You could very easily build a drone very similar to the way that most American manufacturers have done, which is the system integration route, which you buy a flight controller from Auterion. It comes with your PCB board. It comes with your integrated radio. It comes with a lot of different integrated plug-and-play systems that you can build your drone off of. I would also argue, because the last time that I looked, I think the Cube system was like $3,500 for the entire system. You can buy a PX4, a Pixhawk for way cheaper and build an amazing drone. I'm not going to lie. I remember when John McBride was leaving RMUS and I bought all the Wukong flight controllers that he had because I knew that in the future I was going to want to have an old DJI flight controller that I could build a fully custom drone and do stuff. I still have them. I know exactly where they are in the basement and I'm ready to go build a coaxial octocopter that's a Cinewhoop, because that's a Cinelifter. Sorry, that's the new big class I want to do. Hopefully at the end of this year, if a baby doesn't get in the way. So that being
he gonna get in the way.
That being said, yeah, with the Auterion system, you now have other integrators working with Auterion. So if you want to buy the Skynode, $3,500. Buy a frame, motors, ESCs, in your radio. That's your drone. I mean, it's straight up that easy. And now you've got integrators like Gremsy that's mixing in with Auterion so that you can get automated payloads, automated camera payloads, automated gimbals that work with the LR1. Did you know that you can buy an LR1 gimbal, $2,500? LR1, last time I checked, was $2,700. So you could...
From FreeFly?
No, you buy it direct from Sony and Gremsy.
Okay.
But here's the thing. You could buy a Sky Hero octocopter frame, $500. Your motors, you're going to need like a U7, U8. So that's going to be, gosh, what are those? $200-$300 each, and you need 7 or 8 of them. So that's going to be $2,400. I mean, you're looking at $12,000 to buy a nice drone and fly it and build it yourself.
And then the time of troubleshooting and figuring it all out.
Yes. Which Rob is saying very lightly but it is by far the biggest headache ever. It's the software.
I think it gets underestimated. And I know, having seen a couple of these builds happen in real time, it's been a while and the systems are better, I'm sure, but it takes some technical know-how.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of troubleshooting time. And then when you're out in the field, it's generally not going to be turn everything on and bloop.
Yeah.
There's going to be issues.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember, Peter, if you hear the Christmas jingle, it's the best sound ever. Do you remember that? And that's like the Pixhawk properly starting
Working.
up. Yeah.
But when it doesn't, they're just kind of like, oh boy, here we go again.
Yeah. It is a nightmare. It is not for the softies. It is not for the sensitive.
Even as much as we love FreeFly, even with FreeFly, there's some idiosyncrasies that you've got to work through, right?
And I was just going to sit here
and that's a well calibrated, I mean, that's a beautifully built drone.
And I think FreeFly has actually done the hard work that no other domestic manufacturer has done, even Skydio, because those drones fly so naturally. Like when you pitch the stick forward to move the drone forward, it's a nice, soft, what is it called? Exponential move where the aircraft moves forward. Skydio does the classic Pixhawk of the like dip to go forward. And then I've seen Inspired Flight, someone pitch the stick forward. It did the same thing. Sony's flight controller did the same thing. I really think that FreeFly Systems has done some of the most exceptional work in coding their drones to feel natural and work in the way the DJI drones have worked and made, and they've created that expectation, right? And I think FreeFly is the only drone. Look at Jake Duckworth, who picked up the Astro, and he goes, wow, at first you're really nervous because it's such a big, powerful, expensive drone, but it flies just like a DJI. And I'm like, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then if that's the case, then they just need to go like build a Mavic or a Matrice
Autarian
like drone.
Yeah, Autarian came out with a micro platform. Trent told me about it. I haven't had time to build anything on it or try it out or anything like that, but they have a micro FPV line now with a new flight controller and system, and they are trying to slim things down. Yeah, there it is right there. The Micro XR CE DDS. Yeah, that's a great name.
It's like every team member got to add a letter.
Let me tell you about the XRC DDDSOSO.
They double as a dentist. I don't know. That's just.
I don't know. I think I know someone in the marketing department. Wink, wink, Trent. What are you guys doing?
That's awesome.
Oh, he's gonna give me shit for saying that, but I deserve it.
Anyways,
but Autarian, is so. Let's get back to the question: can he build his own drone? Yes, he absolutely can. A great way to build the drone might be using older flight controllers. I mean, I remember when NASA V2, that's the Phantom 4 Pro version 2. I remember when people were like stunned at the capability of that flight controller, and now we have different flight controllers. Most of the Autel, you crack open an Autel Evo 2, it was still using NASA V2. It literally said DJI NASA inside of an Autel drone. I remember cracking ours open and being like, you got to be shitting me. So when people are like, Autel is not DJI, it's not Chinese, I'm like, have you ever cut one open to actually see what's on the inside? Because you might shut the hell up after doing that.
Maybe they're not anymore. Back then they were. I don't know. Have you?
No, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So bless their hearts.
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to. Anyway, so you can build one, and that price 10 to 12, that would include the LR1. So it's got the camera,
which would be a 60 megapixel mapping camera.
So it'd be a great camera to have.
No, I mean, it's definitely possible. Okay, so let's run the numbers really quick, right? If you want the highest of high-end camera payload, the LR1, right, and you're gonna pay $2,700 plus the gimbal. Okay, if you went with the Skynode, which I think is absurdly expensive and not needed, that's $3,500. You're at almost $9,000, and now you need a frame, motors, ESCs, radio, and remote. So that's 5 things you have.
Up to 13, 14 probably.
Easy, yeah. Now, if you were to get your own Pixhawk or PX4, That's going to be $500 plus your motors, $2,400 plus your ESCs. You're going to need at least 60 amp, maybe 80 amp ESCs.
And what about, you're not going to have smart batteries. You're going to have the old LiPo batteries or what?
Yeah, you're going to have to use, even without buying Skynode and just using a cheap flight controller, you're at 13
I thought
grand.
you had Skynode in that base number though.
You're right. I
So
did.
like
Mine is-
3,500 from that.
Yeah.
So 9,500.
So 9,500.
But then you got to do batteries,
You gotta
all
buy
the charging
batteries.
mechanisms for the LiPo batteries. And then what about, because he's asking specifically, could you do this and then use it for photogrammetry? What about third-party software?
So that's actually a great question, is that with a PX4, PixHawk, Auterion, you can use Q Ground Control, which is an app that's native to the Arduino environment.
Okay.
So you can use, if you remember, actually, when we did our first mapping class with Walt and Peter in 2014, they were using Q Ground Control on that S800 lookalike that they had built. Remember when we were looking at buying that corner property on the west side?
Mhm.
We went out there and flew that drone.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So that would be a way to do it. What's the quality of that, or the workflow ease of that going to be relative to, say, the new
glitchy
Matrice
as
4E?
hell.
Yeah.
Glitchy as hell.
Yeah.
Don't you remember how many times it took them to fly a successful mission?
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, and now that you have UGCS, which you can run a mapping mission on a PX4, a PixHawk, Skynode, any of those, and UGCS is extremely robust and really good, but you run it from a laptop.
So what you're saying, though, in your answer to my question, is that you're not really going to be able to access any of those third part, like Maps Made Easy or any of that stuff. It's
No, those will not work on.
So you're toast as far as all that stuff.
But you can still run mapping missions. You know, it's actually funny. One of the apps that came up that can be used, this is going to blow your mind, is ArcGIS Flight.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I would like to try that.
Interesting.
Because every time Andrew has pulled out ArcGIS Flight, like when we were testing the Astro that we had, and he was like, oh, you're going to have to map an iPad to the remote to fly the mission. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, like, I know in your mind, you're like, just plug the iPad in. It's fine. It'll work. It's like, no, because it's got to be the right iPad. It's got to be new enough. Then it's going to work with your software version. Then I better have a robust cable that if I don't lose the connection. And then I was just like, no, I'm not playing games. Like it's a different calculation when you got 40, 50K in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're like, no, I don't want to do that. You
True.
know,
Yeah.
I want to know what works and nothing else. So,
True. Yeah.
so can he build a drone for sub $10,000 and map with it? Yes, he could. I would argue you could probably get it down to below $5,000 if you were really cheap on the flight controllers, the ESCs, etc. But you got to be careful with that because I cheaped out on ESCs for that Y6, and I think that was
they gave us hell for that.
Yep.
Remember, they
and
complained about that the entire time they were building it.
because I think that's what caused all the failures because they couldn't handle the
Yeah, that's what they
amperage.
said.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, guys. if you ever saw this, there are multiple factors, but I think the cheap components that we bought were that made it hard on them. It definitely made it harder on them to build it.
100%.
So you're not going to want to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just
That's
not.
the thing to build, you know, Brian, was it Brian?
No.
Adam.
Adam.
I don't know why I said Brian earlier from Skydio. Adam Bree, from Skydio. He painted a really, really eloquent picture of building a drone. That it is a very, high standards, low margin for error, extremely difficult to scale thing. And he's right. People think that just because DJI can do it, it must be easy. It's like, no. Take JPL in California. Take Sandia National Labs. Take Los Alamos National Labs. And then add up all the engineering and software employees that they have. It's like 4,500 people. That's what DJI has on top of the manufacturing. Like, we're talking about 4,500 people with IQs over 120 building these drones on one team. You know, and I'll never forget, God bless his soul, Romeo, who recently passed away. I remember one of the last conversations that we had is I was like, tell me about how different it is working with the Chinese versus working with Auterion. He goes, it's night and day different. He goes, I love it because Auterion is much more collaborative. It's much more friendly. It's much more, let's figure out things to get it done. He goes, now when I worked for DJI, everything got done very, very, very fast, but it was extremely competitive, cutthroat. He goes, it's like working on Wall Street, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, it's just fascinating how DJI has really started from nothing and completely created most of this industry.
Yeah.
So it's just
And
fascinating. How come we can't copy it when China does such a good job of copying our stuff?
I know. And we just sit here on the show like, why doesn't someone just build a drone like DJ?
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying that anymore.
Well,
Because
and
we've said it so many times.
Look at Lucid, right? You know,
Yeah.
Lucid was building drones. Now they're focusing on ground bots.
Well, I think they're doing both. They still have their drones, but nobody is wanting to try to fill in some of the, like the minis and
Well,
the Airs.
Helios is, we talked about them on the news show. I don't know how much it costs though, but it's a little drone that's about like a flashlight size and, you know, sub 250 grams. The camera's on the bottom, not gimbaled though, because they call it internal stabilization. I'm like, oh, I want to see that.
No fair. Internal. Maybe it is.
Well, this camera has internal stabilization, and
Yeah, but we're not running it around. If we were using that camera out, like
On a
filming, moving it,
drone?
we'd have it on a gimbal,
yeah, 100%.
right?
Yeah, 100%.
So that doesn't count. Anyways,
See, what I would do is if I needed a mapping drone, I would figure out how to unlock the SDK from a Pocket 3, an Osmo Pocket 3, okay? And I would attach that to a Cinewhoop, and I would effectively have a Phantom 4 Pro for $2,000. I could build that right now with everything that's in our office.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There, you should have said that at the beginning of the show. We could have been eating lunch by now.
On that bombshell, that's going to do it for us today, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a question, askdroneu.com. John, thanks for the question. And for everyone who's already signed up for the experience training, we're halfway through. So if you want a seat, pick them up now. Join us in Colorado. We're going to be doing some fun stuff in Breck. It's honestly my favorite training, and I look forward to it every year. So
Absolutely. Me too.
we'll see you there.